This is Alan Watt speaking, and I'm this evening on my ferry boat the host to a fascinating party sponsored by the San Francisco Oracle, which is our new underground paper, far outer than any far out that has yet been seen. And we have here Alan Cohen representing the paper, the Oracle. We have Allen Ginsberg, poet and rabbinic sadhu. We have Timothy Leary, about whom nothing needs to be said, and Gary Snyder, also poet, Zen monk, and old friend of many years.
Everybody is all bugged because they think, one, the dropout thing really doesn't mean anything. It's what you're going to cultivate is a lot of freak-out hippies goofing around and throwing bottles through windows when they flip out on LSD. That's their stereotype vision. Obviously a stereotype.
Sounds like Bolshevik.
Second, no, it's like it's no different from the newspaper vision anyway. I mean, they've got the newspaper vision. And secondly, they're afraid that there'll be some sort of fascist putsch, like is rumored lately. Everybody's going to be arrested, so that the lack of organization among the lack of community, the lack of communicating community among the hippies will lead to some concentration camp situation, or lead, as it has been in Los Angeles recently, to a dispersal of what beginning of the community began.
These are the old menopausal minds. There was a psychiatrist named Adler in San Francisco whose interpretation of the Butte-Bean was that this is the basis for new fascism when a leader comes along. And I sensed in the activist movement the cry for a leader. The cry
but they're just as intelligent as you are on this fact. They know about what happened in Russia. That's the reason that they haven't got a big active organization, is because they too are stumped by how do you have a community and a community movement and cooperation within the community to make life more pleasing for everybody, including the end of the Vietnam War. How do you have such a situation organized or disorganized, as long as it's effective, without a fascist leadership? Because they don't want to be that either. See, they are conscious of the fact that they don't want to be messiahs, political messiahs. At least Savio is particularly, he wants to go out. Yesterday he was weeping, saying he wanted to go out and live in nature.
Beautiful.
So, I mean, he's like basically where we are.
Well, I think that thus far the genius of this kind of underground that we're talking about is that it has no leadership. The Western world has labored for many, many centuries under a monarchical conception of the universe, where God is the boss, and political systems and all kinds of law have been based on this model of the universe, that nature is run by a boss. Whereas if you take the Chinese view of the world, which is organic, they would say, for example, that the human body is an organization in which there is no boss. It is a situation of order resulting from mutual interrelationship of all the parts. And what we need to realize is that there can be, shall we say, a movement, a stirring among people, which can be organically designed instead of politically designed. It has no boss.
Yeah, well,
and yet all the parts recognize each other in the same way as the cells of the body all cooperate together.
Well, it's a new social structure.
Yes.
It's a new social structure which follows certain kinds of historically known tribal models.
Exactly, yeah. My historical reading of the situation is that these great monolithic empires have developed in history, Rome, Turkey, so forth, and they always break down when enough people, and it's always the young, the creative, and the minority groups, drop out and go back to a tribal form. And I agree with what I've heard you say in the past, Gary, that the basic unit is tribal. And what I envision is thousands of small groups throughout the United States and Western Europe and eventually the world is dropping out. What happened when Rome fell? What happened when Jerusalem fell? Little groups went off
precisely
together.
what do you mean by drop out then? Vincent, you haven't dropped out. You dropped out of your job as a psychology teacher in Harvard. Now, what you've dropped into is, one, a highly complicated series of arrangements for lecturing and for putting on the festival.
Well, I'm dropped out of that.
No, but you're not dropped out of the very highly complicated legal constitutional appeals, which you feel a sentimental regard for, as I do. You haven't dropped out of being the financial provider for Millbrook. You haven't dropped out of planning and conducting community organization and participating in it. And that community organization is related to the national community, too, either through the Supreme Court or through the very existence of the dollar that is exchanged for you to pay your lawyers or to take money to pay your lawyers in the theater. So you can't drop out, because you haven't.
Well, let me explain.
And so they think you mean a drop out, go live on Haight-Ashbury Street and do nothing at all. Even if you can do something like build furniture and sell it or give it away and barter with somebody else.
You have to drop out in a group. You drop out in a small tribal group.
Well, you drop it out one by one, but, like you can join the subculture.
Or maybe it's a drop out of what?
Gary, I think that you have something to say here, because you, to me, are one of the most fantastically capable dropout people I've ever met. I think that at this point, you should say a word or two about your own experience of how to live on nothing, how to get by in life economically. And this is the nitty-gritty. This is where it really comes down to in many people's minds. Where's the bread going to come from if everybody drops out? Now, you know expertly where it's going to come from, living a life of integrity and not being involved in a commute necktie strangle news scene.
Well, this isn't news to anybody, but when 10, 15 years ago, when we dropped out, there wasn't a community. And there wasn't anybody who was going to take care of you at all. You were really completely on your own. What it meant was cutting down on your desires and cutting down on your needs to an absolute minimum. And it also meant don't be a bit fussy about how you work or what you do for a living. That meant doing any kind of work. Strawberry picking, carpenter, laborer, longshore. Well, longshore is hard to get onto, and it paid very well. Shipping out, that also pays very well. But at least in my time, it meant being willing to do any goddamn kind of labor that came your way and not being fussy about it. And it meant cultivating the virtue of patience. The patience of sticking with a shitty job long enough to win the bread that you needed to have some more leisure, which meant more freedom to do more things that you wanted to do. And mastering techniques of all kinds of techniques of living really cheap, like getting free rice off the docks because the loading trucks sometimes fork the rice sacks and spill little piles of rice on the docks, which are usually thrown away. But I had it worked out with some of the guards down on the docks that they would gather 15, 25 pounds of rice for me and also tea. And I'd pick it up once a week off the docks, and then I'd take it around and give it to friends. And this was rice that was going to be thrown away otherwise. There's little techniques like that.
Second-day vegetables from the supermarket.
Yeah, we used to go around at 1 or 2 in the morning around the Safeways and the Piggly Wigglies in Berkeley with a shopping bag and hit the garbage cans out and back. And we'd get Chinese cabbage, broccoli, lots of broccoli, and artichokes that were thrown out because they didn't look sellable anymore. So I never bought any vegetables for the 3 years I was a graduate student at Berkeley. And when I made meat, it was usually horse meat from the pet store because they don't have a law that permits them to sell horse meat for human consumption in California like they do in Oregon.
You make delicious horse meat sukiyaki.
Well, I want to add to this, Gary, that during the time when you were living this way, I visited you on occasion, and you had a little hut way up on the hillside on Homestead Valley in Mill Valley. And I want to say, for the record, that this was one of the most beautiful pads I ever saw. It was sweet and clean, and it had a very, very good smell to the whole thing. And you were living what I consider to be a very noble life. Now, then the question that next arises, if this is the way of being a successful dropout, which I think it is true, can you have a wife and child under such circumstances?
Yeah, I think you can, sure.
What about when the state forces you to send the child to school?
You send it to school.
Oh no! Come on, I don't see this as a dropout at all.
I want to finish what I was going to say. That's the way it was 10 years ago. today there is a community,
Yeah.
a huge community, which when you drop out, when any kid drops out today, he's got a subculture to go fall into. He's got a place to go where there'll be friends and people that will put him up and people that will feed him at least for a while and keep feeding him indefinitely if he moves around from pad to pad.
But that's just stage one. The value of the Lower East Side or of the district in Seattle, or the Haight-Ashbury, is it provides a first launching pad. Mm-hmm. But that must be seen clearly as a way station. I don't think the Haight-Ashbury district is a place, any city for that matter, is a place where the new tribal
I agree with you.
is going to live.
Not
so that when I mean drop out, and I don't want to be misinterpreted, I'm dropping out step by step. Millbrook, by the way, is a tribal community. We're getting closer and closer to the land. We're working out our way of import and export with the planet. We consider ourselves a tribe of mutants, just like all the little tribes of Indians were. We happen to have our little area there, and we have to come to terms with the white men around us. So yes, there's no.
Okay, but now look, your dropout line is fine for all those other people out there. You know, that's what you got to say to them. But I want to hear what you're building. What are you making?
What are we building?
Yeah, what are you building? I want to hear your views on that. Now, like it's agreed we're dropping out, and there are techniques to do it. Now, what next? Where are we going now? What kind of society
I'm making the prediction that thousands of groups will just look around the fake prop television set of American society and just open one of those doors. And when you open the doors, they don't lead to any room, they lead you out into the Garden of Eden, which is this planet. And then you find yourself a little tribe wandering around. As soon as enough people do this, enough young people do this, it will bring about an incredible change in the consciousness of this country and of the Western world.
Well, that is happening, actually.
Yeah.
But
that Garden of Eden is full of old rubber truck tires and tin cans right now, you know.
Parts of it are. Each group that drops out has got to use its 2 billion years of cellular equipment to answer those questions. Hey, how are we going to eat? Oh, there's no more paycheck. There's no more fellowship in university. How are we going to eat? How are we going to keep warm? How are we going to defend ourselves?
What is very important here is that people learn the techniques which have been forgotten. That they learn new structures and new techniques. Like you just can't go out and grow vegetables, man. You've got to know how to do it. You know, like we've got to learn to do a lot of things we've forgotten to do.
I agree.
That is very true, Gary. Our educational system in its entirety does nothing to give us any kind of material competence. In other words,
exactly.
We don't learn how to cook, how to make clothes, how to build houses, how to make love, or to do any of the absolutely fundamental things of life. The whole education that we get for our children in school is entirely in terms of abstractions. It trains you to be an insurance salesman or a bureaucrat or some kind of cerebral character.
Within the next 5 years, probably, a modest beginning will be made in subculture institutions of higher learning that will informally begin to exist around the country and will provide this kind of education without being linked to the establishment, to big industry, to government.
Oh, it's already happening.
It's already happening. I think that we'll see a big extension of that, employing a lot of potentially beautiful teachers who are unemployed at the moment, like there are gurus who are just waiting to be put to use, and also drawing people who are working in universities with a bad conscience off to join that.
Exactly. See,
but there's a whole new order of technology that is required for this. A whole new science, actually. A whole new physical science is going to emerge for this. Because the boundaries of the old physical science are within the boundaries of the Judeo-Christian and Western imperialist boss sense of the universe that Alan was talking about. In other words, our scientific tradition is caught within the limits of that father figure, Jehovah, or Roman emperor model, which limits our scientific objectivity and actually holds us back from exploring areas of science which can be explored. So that really, like our new technology goes with this.
Exactly.
It's like the guy in Los Angeles who had a bad trip on LSD and turned himself into the police and wrote, "Please help me," signed, Jehovah.
That's beautiful. But that's how he caught on, huh?
But here, though, is this thing, you see. We are talking about all this, which is really a rather small movement of people involved in the midst of a fantastic multitude of people who can only continue to survive if automated industry, feeds them, clothes them, houses them, and transports them by means of the creation of